All right, guys. Well, today is going to be another one of those beautiful interviews. I've got one of my great friends here, Miss Mills Bender, today. Let me tell you a little bit about Mills Bender here. She owns a little company called Mills Knows Bills. We're going to talk a lot about that today. She's a UCF graduate. She's got 2 kiddos. She's been married to her husband, Joe, for 7 years, together for almost 10 years, like a whole decade. She's an entrepreneur, public speaker, businesswoman, active in her community, and she has her own podcast called Mills Knows Bills. So welcome, Mills Bender.
Thank you for having me. This is an honor to be across the table from you. Typically, we're just chit-chatting behind the scenes.
I know. It's a different scenario when you're in front of the microphone and you've got people actually listening. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to need you to be on your best behavior.
No.
I'm going to need you to don't say bullshit or anything like that. Okay, that's my job. Deal?
Fair.
All right, cool. So Mills, let's jump right in. I mean, you have a really cool company, but besides that, you have a really cool lifestyle company.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So let's talk about that. So Mills Knows Bills, what do you guys do there?
So we are a team of fractional CFOs. So we will work on a part-time contractual basis, helping business owners manage their business finances.
So what does that really mean?
We help them with making decisions in their business. So when to hire, when to fire, when to invest in new equipment or software, basically giving them the story behind their financial data, because most business owners are great at what they do, but they didn't go to school to read their financial statements. And so it's overwhelming for them to look at. Yeah,
I've heard a saying about finances where they say the money tells the story, and it's the job of the leadership to decipher the story.
Exactly.
And that P&L, if improperly written, will actually make you think you're winning when actually you're slowly losing. Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, you're out of business and you think you were doing great all along.
Yeah.
And you've seen that.
I have. In fact, it was such improper books, whether they were not detailed enough, done too late, or really they're just incorrect. That data is so critical within the business. It's so frustrating as an obstacle as a business that we actually brought bookkeeping in-house to fix that as a problem because we couldn't do our jobs properly.
So another offering you have is bookkeeping.
Yeah.
So you've got kind of this leadership level CFO thing and then bookkeeping on the back end.
Yeah. And we actually just this past Monday announced a partnership with a tax firm where through them we're offering tax filing, strategy, and planning services.
Yeah. Probably what most people think is an expense, but really it's an asset if you have the right person in the place.
Exactly. I think a lot of business owners, they don't realize that they need a CFO because it's not a societal norm. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody knows they need an accountant. Everybody knows that they need a bookkeeper, but that proactive financial guidance, knowing where the business is going based off of the history, that's not common knowledge. And so what we like to say is if you don't have a CFO, you are the CFO. Now the question is, are you qualified for that job?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. When I got into real estate, my first year in real estate, I had a gangbusters year. I came in, wanted to make what every other real estate agent wants to make their first year in real estate, $100,000. And I said, if I can make $100,000, I'll be rich. And my first year, I sold 42 houses, made $242,000. Wow. My second year, I sold 78 houses, made $340,000. This is when the market was trending up. And I was my own CFO. And my financial advisor was a real estate agent. My accountant was a real estate agent. My long-term financial strategy stockbroker was a real estate agent who were all idiots. And the market shifted. They all declared bankruptcy, and I found myself literally in my office crying.
Yeah.
My 3-year-old walks in and says, "Daddy, why are you crying?" And I look over at him and I said, "Because I've put you in a terrible financial position and I'll never do this to you again." And after that, I made a commitment to understand the rules of money.
Yeah.
Because money is like a relationship. Mm-hmm. There are rules. Mm-hmm. If your spouse cheats on you, you will leave.
Yeah.
If you cheat on your money, it will leave. Mm-hmm. In a relationship, there is a behavior that you have to have, or else your spouse will leave, or those people will leave. Mm-hmm. If you do not behave a certain way towards money, it will leave.
Yeah.
It will not stay in relationship with you. And what we also know is that we're programmed, and I actually had to hire a coach specifically for this. Rest in peace. His name is John Alexandrov. He wrote a book called Your Money Chi. I read it. I called him, asked him to coach me. He coached me. And what he taught me was this idea that everyone is programmed with something called a money DNA.
Okay.
So you have this idea, this understanding around money. And my understanding around money went all the way back to my childhood. So do you mind if I tell you a quick story?
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay. So I grew up in a working class Irish neighborhood in Long Island, New York, a very segregated place. We were working class. My neighbor across the street, his dad worked for the Daily News, printing the newspaper at night. You know, my mom worked 3 jobs just to put food on the table. My uncle was a police officer. So we're working class people. We were not what you would call rich, right? Made just enough money every month to be broke. But you know who was rich? Those people over there on the other side of the tracks with the big houses. And you know how they got rich? By taking advantage of people like us. So now that DNA is being imprinted on me as a child. If you're rich, you take advantage of people.
Yep.
If you make money, you do that. So when I got rich, you know what I had to do? I had to get rid of that money. I had to get rid of it. Because if not, I was one of them, those bad people, not one of the good people.
Yeah.
And so my DNA was to get rid of it. And this is what we find out about a lot of people who come into wealth, is they don't learn the rules. They don't change. So if you can imagine like this, you start wherever you are. So I was a police officer making just enough money to be broke all the time. Catastrophic growth in 1 year from 50,000 to 242,000 in 1 year. How much time do I have to change my behavior?
Not enough.
Okay, then the next year I go to 370 or something like that. How much time do I have to change my behavior now?
A little bit more, but not enough still.
Still not enough, right? So what happened is if you go from here to here, and this is what most people they want. I want to go from where I am to where I want to be, and I want to do it quickly.
Yeah.
That's actually the fool's trap.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I share with you why?
Yeah.
Here's the reason why it's the fool's trap, because here's what happens. Your finances changes, you don't.
Yeah.
Your spending habits don't change. Your thoughts about money don't change. Your behaviors don't change. So if it doesn't change, you go up. And in my case, I came straight back down and below.
Yeah.
So I remember crying, telling my son what happened. And then I've got to talk to my wife about it. And I said, sweetheart, I want to show you what I'm looking at. She goes, what are you looking at? I said, a P&L. She says, what is that? And I said, it's a profit and loss statement. Basically tells you the health and well-being of our company and our lives. And she said, what does it say? And it says, honey, it says that we're about $1 million in debt. And she says, don't ever show that to me again. Ran in our room, started crying, locked the door. Really happened. So over the course of the next 7 years, I had to pay off that debt. I chose not to declare bankruptcy. I think bankruptcy in business is a good tool. But for me, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn the lessons. And what happened is I began to grow and stabilize.
Yes.
Then grow and stabilize and grow and stabilize. And as my wealth grew a little bit and I stabilized, what happened is there were times where my mentality, my money DNA, my money chi didn't change and I would fall down.
Yeah.
But I would only fall down one step.
Yes.
And that's where I no longer have those catastrophic issues. So when people say, hey, I want to accomplish X and I want to do it really fast, I say, you actually don't.
Yeah.
You want to grow and stabilize. So that's what happened to me. And that sounds to me like your mission in life is to prevent people from being Dan Grebe.
A little bit, yeah. In that capacity. Everything else, though, no. I want them to be like you.
Well, thank you. I like to be like me today, you know. But the reality of that, Mills, is, you know, when you think about the biggest stresses you're going to have in your life, right? Death, divorce, and bankruptcy. Financial stress. The number one reasons why marriages don't work, same. So if you can, you know, do your part of stabilizing businesses, you're actually stabilizing families.
Yeah.
You're making the world better.
Yeah. I don't think about it like that. I think the way that I kind of visualize it is if you're building a sustainable and scalable business, that means that you're able to employ more people, which means you're changing their personal lives. But you're right. If you're creating that stability, that goes home with them too. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I tell my coaching clients all the time, and I hope you will adopt this, is that these are life principles that apply to business, not business principles that apply to life.
I do like that.
So, you know, the worst thing you can do if you're one of my clients or anyone that I can have some level of influence over is compartmentalize what I teach you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to make you a better business person. I'm doing this to make you a better dad, better mom, better husband, better wife. That's the foundation. And then from there, if that's good, then everything else can be better.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't have to, you know, you and I, we're both believers. And I always I literally say this every episode. This is not Bible Hour with Dan Grebe, okay? But if you're not of religious faith, and that's okay if you're not, you can look at the Bible as just a success manual, right? Mm-hmm. And the success manual, it says that if you are well in your marriage, you can be well in everything else. But if you're not well in your marriage or in your home or in your family, you can't be well in everything else. Yeah. Now, I can only speak for men. I don't know if I told you this before, but I've never been a woman. So I can only speak for men. And this is what I noticed that men do is they say, I'm going to get my money right. And then I'm going to get my family right. And then I'm going to get my marriage right. And then I'm going to be right. When the reality is you got to get yourself right, get your family right, marriage right, get your family right, and then your money will be right.
I agree.
So how does that play out in your business?
Well, I mean, we talk about something similar. We talk about faith, family, fitness, finance, and it has to be in that order. And if you don't have your priorities right, then you're not going to be able to amplify or double down on the good parts of the finances. You know, I think you and I have talked about this before, where whatever your habits are, the more money you make, the more it amplifies whatever those habits are. So if you have good money habits, the more money you make, the more good habits you can double down on. The bad money habits, though, if you make more, you're just doubling down on the bad habits. And so we like to talk about, you know, making sure that your money mindset is right. You have resilience as you step into your business, that you have a why behind why you want to scale and grow. Don't just put a vanity metric on it. Know the implications it's going to have, but then make sure that the work that comes alongside that is not causing you to misalign elsewhere in your life. It's not causing you to take time away from your family that you really can't or don't want to afford to take away from your family. Let's look at a way to scale smarter, not harder. And so we like to have those holistic conversations because at the end of the day, it's just money.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. I mean, you just dropped a lot of really good knowledge there. So let's take it one step at a time here. Sure. You're not going to hear me ever say that money is going to make you happy because it won't.
No.
But here's what I will tell you. A lack of money compounds every other problem you have in your life. If your marriage isn't going well and you're kind of struggling financially, your marriage is worse. Mm-hmm. If you got a sick kid and you don't have any money, then the sick kid situation gets worse. Mm-hmm. If you are struggling in your health and you have no money, then it's a worse scenario. Yeah. So there is a benefit to having money and there is a benefit to starting early.
Yeah.
But you said something earlier, and I want to be very clear on these words. So what does it mean to have financial resilience? Financial resilience.
So when I say resilience, I mean how you step into your business. Mm-hmm. For me, and this has actually been a huge point of conversation with our team lately, one of our core values is resilience. We expect our clients, our business owners, to show up consistently regardless of how they feel. Because as the communicator of where they stand with their finances, it's not always good news that we share. Mm-hmm. And so when there's that point that neither of us really want to talk about, but we need to, is that business owner going to step up or step out? Because if you're scaling a business, not only are you impacting your home life, you're impacting the home life of all of the other individuals on your team. So when that adversity arises, are you going to step up to it? Are you going to be resilient and work through it even when you don't want to? Or are you going to quit? And so it's been a huge point of conversation lately because I feel like this too sometimes. In fact, last week I wanted to burn everything to the ground. It's just one of those weeks. But I decided, you know what? The decision I'm thinking about right now, that's a big decision. I need to sit on this thought process for at least a week to make sure that I am making a decision out of objectivity rather than the emotions I'm feeling right now. And so when it comes to financial resilience, you need to show up consistently, regardless of how you feel. But as you get to each next step, you need to financially afford the opportunity to build that step ladder. So build up your savings. Make sure that you are not investing back in the business when you're really just buying an additional expense. You get your savings where they needs to be, then you set aside additional money for that new hire that you need to make, or investing back in that software or equipment in order to take your business to the next level. You need to then go to the next step. Okay, do I have a retirement plan? Do I have money that's going elsewhere outside of the business? So the financial resilience, the business resilience, it all boils down to being consistent and doing the things that frankly aren't the sexiest, but is what builds the sustainability.
Yeah, love that. You're so right. You know, I look at my life and I look at my businesses I've been involved with. I've been in business independently for 20 years. Prior to that, I was part of another business that literally changed the world for travel.
Mm-hmm. You and I have talked about it.
Yes.
I actually see it all the time now.
I know. Me too. It reminds me of the world I could have had, but it's the world I didn't want either. And so I'm glad I stepped away, but it was literally changed the world business. And I'm glad I got a chance to get my feet wet. I worked with some great partners. You know, Mr. Rosen just passed away recently. One of my mentors and a guy in that business, a business partner in that. And I think about resilience, right?
Yeah.
And then when I think about resilience and the way you're describing it, the showing up when you don't want to show up, it makes me think back to this, like one of my core principles, which is the laws of leadership, according to Dan, laws of leadership. And they really kind of play out as 3 levels. You've heard this a million times. The first level of leadership is how you lead yourself.
Yep.
You know, how you show up day to day and how you react to life and life's terms. Nobody wants to follow a leader that's a mess. It's reality. Number 2 is how you manage and lead in your family. And I say there's a comma there where it counts, right? So it's very, very important to remember that. How I lead in my family, comma, where it counts. And I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
And then the third one is how I lead and manage, comma, how I lead in my business, comma, where it's just practice. And here's why. When you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're in any level of leadership, there's something called the penalty of leadership. The pain associated with doing it, right? Everybody likes the guy who does the speech and it gets the applause, but the reality, the tireless work behind the scenes, that's really hard and it's challenging. And when you're rejected as a business owner or a salesperson, it really brings back all the negatives of your life, those things you hear. But that's just practice because life's going to happen. You know, all of us, every one of us is going to get that phone call saying, come quick, we need you.
Yeah.
Because a loved one is sick.
Yeah.
How are you going to show up then? Well, some people don't show up well because they've never had an opportunity to practice adversity.
Yeah.
You know, my son-in-law, David, was in here just the other day. I was interviewing him and we were talking about him and, you know, his mom got sick this year and he had to take care of his mom by himself. His dad kind of has stepped away. They got divorced. His dad wasn't there. Dad was the central figure for a long time. They were together for probably 30 or 40 years. Wow. They got divorced and now mom's all by herself. Well, David steps up, buys her a house. David is the primary caregiver of his mom and she's got some real sicknesses that require surgery and, you know, ER visits, you know, I'm talking like dozens of ER visits. Like she's home, ER, middle of the night ER visits, middle of the day ER visits, just stuff happening. Yeah. And he got it. He did it. He showed up as the hero, just as I knew he would. And when you asked him, where'd you get that? He would say, well, I learned it from doing my Ironman activities. I learned it for being highly accountable by where I work. I learned it because of the level of responsibility I have at where I work, because I'm tested continually to see if I'll show up and I'll have resilience. And he did it voluntarily so that when life came at him involuntarily, he was ready. So I tell people like, it's okay. Take on a lot, do a lot.
Yeah.
It'll make you a better husband, better mom, better dad, better spouse, better wife. And then when life happens, you'll be ready. And that's what I love about you using that word resilience and teaching that early on to your clients. That's beautiful. And then you mentioned something else here that I think is really germane to what we're talking about and something that gets overlooked a lot. And that's the concept of a vanity metric. Mm-hmm. What does a vanity metric mean to you?
In the world of fractional CFO work, it's sticking a revenue amount on your business that you want to aim towards simply because it's a cool number.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody say, I want a million top line, 10 million, 100 million. Cool. Why? I don't know. It sounds cool. You're not going to achieve it. And it's not because I don't believe in you. It's simply because there's not enough of a why behind that number. I would much rather somebody come to me and say, I want to make $735,540 a year. Why? Well, because that means I get to pay myself this salary, bring my husband or wife over to the company full time. That's at the point where we can then, knowing that they're coming from a full-time job where they have benefits, cover the amount of benefits. I then can cover the new hires I need to hire in order to get to that revenue amount. They've thought it through. Well, why is bringing that person over to the company full-time important to you? Well, because then we get to spend more time together as a family. We get to take family vacations more often. We get to build something great and cool and new, right? It's very specific. And 735,000 doesn't sound as sexy as a million, but there's a why behind it that has more drive. Absolutely. And when you're connected to your goals, you stop chasing them. They actually start coming to you. Exactly. Love that. I'm in sales. I own a real estate company and I'm in sales, and the vanity metrics that we have, they're just bullshit. Yeah. They're actually derived to keep you in slavery. And let me explain that to you. In the real estate sales world, they'll give you an award for the most units sold. Okay. They'll give you an award for that. They'll give you an award for the most volume. Okay. And when you go to real estate conventions, we're about to go to a real estate convention in Vegas here in a couple weeks. And the agents are going to go around talking to each other, and they're going to judge each other's success based on volume, units, size of their teams, all these things. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm just a little bit of a cranky old man or whatever. They'll ask me those questions, and I'll see where they're trying to go. They're trying to validate whether they should listen to me. Yeah. And I'll say, why are you asking me these questions? Stop asking me these. You're asking me the wrong questions. Yeah. And you're like, well, what's the right question I should ask you? I'm like, just ask me how much money I make a year. How much do I profit? Because at the end of the day, if you sell 1,000 houses a year, but you make $50,000 in profit, do I have a great business? No. If I sell $1 billion worth of real estate annually, but I make $50,000 a year, do I have a great business? Nope. If I have all of these employees all working for me, but yet I'm destitute, I'm just above the poverty line, do I have a great business? No. So what if I had a small business that didn't sell a lot of houses, didn't do a ton of volume, but I was profitable to $250,000? Would you then want to listen to what I have to say? Yeah. So ask the question. And here's the reality. I mean, you know this to be true, and I want you to shed some light on it. I don't, me, I'm just going to call it out. Whenever I talk to an entrepreneur and they start telling me about their business, and I say, so talk to me about your profit, because I provide the space for people to be awesome. Our 2 rules. You never apologize for being awesome when you're in my presence, and we don't do shame. If you messed up, whatever, let's get you better. Yeah. You don't feel shame in my presence. I'm messed up too. Okay. I'm with the ordinary people. That's where I want to be. I want to be with the broken people. But you know what? When you're winning, let's talk about it. Don't feel bad. If I'm not winning at your level, if your marriage is going great and I'm fighting with my wife, just tell me about it. I want that, right? That's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important to talk about profitability. And when I ask somebody, so tell me about your profitability, and they say, well, I'm profitable 40%. I'm profitable 30%. I know that that's bullshit. And here's how I know that. I'm a poor kid from Long Island, New York, okay? Some months I'll make, $100,000 or $102,000 or $83,000 in profit in a month. Mm-hmm. You don't think I'm aware of that number exactly to the penny? Right? If you're making huge dollars, I'm doing the math in my head and you're you just made $87,000 last month. You're going to tell me 40%? Hell no. You're going to be I made $87,000. Yeah. When they give you that percentage, it's bullshit. Yeah. It's because they don't know. Now, here's the reality. Are they lying? No, they're not lying. They're basing it off of some kind of discombobulated, non-accurate, designed to make me feel good P&L that they've either created or somebody created for them. Which, sidebar, the P&L lies to you half the time. Right. Well, it's only garbage in, garbage out. Well, beyond that. And it's inconsistent too. I mean, also beyond that, I was talking with a guy earlier today who said he made $80,000 in profit last year. I asked him if that was before or after he paid himself. He goes, well, I only took draws. Said, how much did you take? 50,000. I said, okay, so you really profited 30,000.
That's right.
Because your P&L does not show any owner's draw.
That's right.
Doesn't show any payments to your principal debt. It shows interest, but your P&L, if you see $80,000 in profit, back out any debt payments you made and back out your owner's draw, and that's your true profit.
Profit before taxes too.
Exactly.
So yeah, so there's many ways to look at this, right? So you've got top line revenue.
Yes.
Then you've got what you would call profit or ordinary profit. Then aren't you surprised about my education on this level?
Why would I be surprised?
I don't know. I'm surprised.
You never cease to amaze me.
Oh, well, thank you. And then outside of that, you have, a pre-tax, post-tax profit. That's important to know those numbers.
Yes.
Because the biggest expense you're going to have in your business is your taxes. And we set these numbers, not even factoring in taxes. Ask me how I know that. I learned that lesson.
How did you learn that lesson?
When the IRS completely seized my bank account. The IRS seized my bank account, and I'm afraid of the IRS. I actually want the IRS to know that I personally love you and appreciate you for all you've done for our country, and that if you need me to mop your floor tomorrow, I will be there. I'm afraid of the IRS. I have received a negative slap from the IRS more than once. I'll tell you a quick story about that. So I made all this money, and I was thinking to myself, well, I'm just a little guy. Of course, I'm not going to save any money for my taxes. I didn't do that. And after the first year, I'm like, well, they didn't catch me the first year, so they probably won't catch me the second year. Oh, no. So 2 years, combined about $500,000 in revenue, no receipts. I get a magic letter from the IRS. Hey, you owe us $80,000, champ. And at the same time, the market is shifting. My house is getting foreclosed on. I'm getting cars repossessed. Everything that I had learned over the last 2 years, I'm discovering is nonsense. And then I get this letter from the IRS. And when my house was getting foreclosed on, that stunk, no doubt about it. But the reality is that didn't hurt as much as knowing the government's out to get you.
Yeah.
And when I realized the government was out to get me, I immediately, turned around, bowed, and started begging for forgiveness. So the IRS, being so kind and gentle that they gave me a payment plan. $1,500 a month is what my payment plan was on this.
How long?
Well, I don't recall, but it could have been like 8 years, right? And so I just paid it blindly. $1,500 a month, $1,500 a month, $1,500 a month for almost 2 years before I actually stopped and looked to see. And you want to know what my good friends at the IRS, who are fantastic and I love them, you know what they did? They allowed me to negatively amortize a debt. So that meant 2 years I had paid them, do quick math, 15,000 plus 3, 18,000. 18 times 2 was at $36,000. I'd paid them $36,000. And when I looked up, I owed them more than the original balance. They allowed me to negatively amortize my loan, my payments to them because, like any good master, they wanted to keep their slave forever. And it was all because I didn't have the financial literacy. I didn't have a U in my life. I had the money for a U in my life. I didn't know I needed a U in my life.
Yeah.
And then next 7 years was paying the IRS, paying off my debts, getting out of that. But it was really beneficial because I learned the rules of money, and that's where I got the education I have today when it comes to finance. Yeah. So let's start with this question, Mills. Okay. What are the common mistakes you're seeing that your clients are making right now when it comes to money?
There's 5.
Oh, hit me. The
first,
5 deadly sins with Mills Bender.
No planning at all in their business. And so they're just making every decision based off of their gut. And that's not to say that their gut is wrong, but it's not as right as it could be if they actually sat down, had a budget, forecasted their cash flow, and they analyzed their profit and loss. They need to plan their operational goals based off of the financial data. The second thing is mixing their business and personal finances.
Can we take those one at a time?
Yes. Sorry. I get excited.
No, that's perfect. We're in your wheelhouse. So the first way, what they're doing is they're doing it entrepreneurially.
Yeah.
They're doing what comes easily and naturally. And so as a result, they're reaching a high level. They're just successful. And they're just kind of winging it to an extent. And then what happens is if they have a high ceiling of achievement, they do it longer.
Yeah.
If they have a low ceiling of achievement, they have a shorter runway, and then they face reality. My problem is I had a high ceiling of achievement. So it took me 2.5 years and, $500,000 in revenue, an IRS debt of $100,000 almost to realize those lessons.
Yeah.
And that's by the way, that's just called normal. If no one's ever educated you, you're just going to do what you know.
Exactly. And it's not to the business owner's fault either when the financial statements are written in a way that really don't operate with how our brain works. A business owner will look at their bank account and they'll say, oh, there's money in there. I can keep going, or I can make this decision. But what they don't realize is that purchase that they're about to make, they've not accounted for the upcoming purchases within the next 13 weeks with going into their slow season is actually going to put them in a detriment. And so they're always, I call it the hamster wheel. They're always running, always making more money, but it never seems to be enough because they're always playing catch up. They've not actually set money aside in the future, and they don't know how because they don't know actually how to project their cash flow and make decisions off of that cash flow.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's when you stop looking at your business as a job and you start looking at your business like a business. You start making your money behave.
Yep.
You start spending your money on paper, on purpose before the month begins. Those practices really start happening. Okay. And that bank, they call that bank statement P&Ling, or that bank statement P&L is a lie.
It is.
Because not only does it not account for what's occurring in the future, but it doesn't account for the checks that haven't cleared.
Exactly.
So it's telling you a mirage. I had someone in here I was interviewing just the other day, and they were talking about how they went to a bar and they went to use their credit card and it was maxed out. But they had thought they had the money.
Yeah.
And it was the bank statement P&L that killed them.
Yeah.
All right. So what's rule number 2? The second deadly sin, according to Mills Bender, when it comes to finances.
Mixing their business and personal finances. Commingling, baby.
Oh my God. Tell me about that.
Oh my word. It hurts in so many ways that business owners don't realize. They think, oh, it's just convenient to keep it as it is. It's not, for so many reasons. If a business owner wants to sell their business and they don't have clean financials between their business versus their personal, they're going to get a lower valuation.
Yep.
The second thing is it's not giving you accurate data to analyze as a business owner to make decisions off of.
You don't know what's real versus fantasy.
Exactly. And then lastly, it makes it more difficult to plan not just your business finances, but your personal finances as well. You don't know how much you can actually contribute to your retirement plan because you don't know what's coming in. You don't know how much you need for retirement because you don't know how much you can contribute. So it muddies the waters when in reality, the solution is so simple. Take a look at your accounts at least once a week, see if anything needs to be switched over onto the other card, and make that change at that time.
Yeah, I love that. With me, one of the things that I teach my coaching clients in terms of finances is that they're only allowed to have 2 credit cards.
Okay.
One's business, one's personal. That's it. 2 credit cards.
Okay.
Everything that's business goes on this one. Everything's personal goes on that one. And they actually have to have a series of banks they bank at. Now, you may think like, well, that sounds expensive because every bank charges you $20, $25 a month, right? So you have your personal account. That's at one bank.
Okay.
Your business account's at a separate bank.
All right.
Your third bank is your investment account.
Okay.
And your fourth bank is where your IRS money goes.
I like that.
And here's why. I only know this because I made these mistakes. I had all my money in the same bank, and I got dinged 2 ways. They were in separate bank accounts, but then whenever I was low on money or I was lazy with my finances personally, I would just go to the well, make a transfer from my business to my personal account. And that kills you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require any real thought because you can do it right on the app.
Yeah.
And then things get really, really tight. I can just move my tax account to pay my mortgage, but I'll pay it back later.
Yeah.
So when you have separate banks and you do not link them, and some of the banks are hard to link.
Yeah.
So I had Fairwinds and TD Bank and Chase. So like those guys don't even talk to each other.
Yeah.
I would have to write a check from one account to the other. And by the time I went to the other one, cashed the check, I had enough time to think about whether that was a good decision. And the ability to just go to the well wasn't available anymore.
Yeah.
So two credit cards, a business and a personal credit card, and at least 2 separate banks to keep your business money somewhere and your personal money somewhere. That's kind of the thoughts I have.
I like that. Make it hard for you to do the thing that you shouldn't be doing in the first place.
Absolutely. But I mean, who taught you that you shouldn't do it? The what you want to taught me I shouldn't do it? Pain. the lesson of pain. I mean, I was a
Sure.
police officer before I was in business. I'd never managed money. I got my paycheck. I paid my mortgage. I paid my one car payment. We had enough money to like survive. And then I would work some details if we wanted to go do anything else.
Yeah.
And then repeat and rinse. Do it again next month. There was never like an abundance of money. So it was always just survive, survive, survive.
Yeah.
Which actually was better than me making a shitload of money because I never got in tremendous debt. I never got
Yes.
financially in trouble.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I always tell people is stay broke.
Yeah.
Especially when you start being profitable, stay broke. What does that mean? Make it so that the money you see in your bank account is not your money.
Yeah.
So the business is a separate entity. That's somebody else's money.
Right.
This is my money.
Yeah.
Love
Even
that.
then, the taxes that you set aside, that's not your money. That's the IRS's money. They just haven't collected it yet.
They will let you know.
Yes, they will.
They will let you know. Okay. What's the next rule?
Avoidance.
What's avoidance mean?
Sticking your head in the sand, thinking that ignorance is bliss when it comes to your finances.
Yes.
It's probably my favorite one.
Preach.
Preach. No, it's crazy to me how many people don't look at their money, even when they're making it, because they're afraid of it.
Of course. That's your money DNA.
Yeah.
There's a book called Money Drunk, Money Sober.
Yep.
I read that. It's not actually even in print anymore. They don't print anymore. You have to buy it secondhand. I had a couple copies out there.
I think my copy might be secondhand though.
Oh, for sure. If you bought it in the last like 5 years, 10
Yeah.
years. John Alexandrov had me read that book when I was going through my money DNA and reading the money chi with him. And it talks about the fact that we have issues around being broke and we have issues around having money.
Yep.
And so avoiding both of those are bad.
Yeah.
Now, the one that most people like, Dan, I'd love to have that. I have too much money problem. Like, I don't have that problem. I have the I'm not have enough money. I'm in debt problem. And I can tell you, this is a reality for me. I mean, there was a time in my life where I was practicing the if you can't see it, it must not be dirty process when it came to my bills. And it was like I would get a credit card bill in and I would throw it away because I didn't want to know the balance. I wasn't going to be able to pay it or I didn't see a path to getting past where I was. So I would just throw it away. And what they call that in psychology or therapy is called going unconscious to your situation.
Oh.
Just going unconscious to it, acting like it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And when you go unconscious, it's a therapeutic way to deal with problems. And in my world, I'm getting foreclosed on. My cars are getting repossessed. My wife's getting judgments on her. You know, American Express had a judgment on my wife because I ran everything up in her name. And I just wouldn't even look at the bills anymore because I was so ashamed of what I had caused.
Yeah.
And that was me going unconscious. But you can only do that for so long.
Yeah.
The chickens always come home to roost.
They do.
And they came home. And you know what? For me, it was probably one of the greatest blessings of my life was getting killed financially because that's where these foundations that I have today were born.
Well, I think a lot of people think it's a lot worse than it really is. Avoiding it it's not going to solve it, certainly, but we always make it worse in our heads than it really is in reality. And the sooner you look at it, the sooner you can start coming up with a solution. And it's not the end of the world, right? It's just money at the end of the day. But I have this approach where, in my opinion, nothing is unfixable. There's always a solution, just might mean that we need to get creative. And the sooner you look at the problem, the sooner you can come up with that solution.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the reality of everything. It's really the reality of everything. If you can have that accountable mindset and you can face things head on, they get better. But here's another truth is that we live in a world right now where you only see people at their best. Instagram best, Facebook best, all that shit.
Get off social media.
Yeah. Well, don't judge your insides to someone else's outsides.
That's also very true.
And, I jokingly say this, but it's so incredibly true. You might laugh when I say it. It is more likely that I can get someone to open up about their sex life than I can about their money.
I believe that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And to think that, especially if you're in financial trouble, they say that the devil or, whatever you want to believe is the bad of the world. The goal of the devil is to make you believe you're the only one.
Yeah.
I'm the only one with this problem. I'm the only one whose mom is sick. I'm the only one going through financial trouble right now. I'm the only one who's sinned. I'm the only one that's made a mistake.
Yeah.
Because as long as you can believe that and isolate yourself, you're his. He's got you.
Yeah.
There's no protection there.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start opening up to the world and start talking about your reality, what you'll realize is everyone else is also suffering. Mm-hmm. So Brene Brown, you know who that is?
Yeah, of course.
One of my favorite authors. She has a saying that says, that which is most personal is also most universal.
Yep.
We just have to have the courage to talk about it. And what happens is the world will then respond to your courage and let you know that you're not the only one.
Yeah.
So whatever you're going through in life right now, business, personal, marriage, weight loss, whatever, sick, whatever, talk about it.
Yeah.
And what you'll find is you're not the only one.
It was funny before this when you're getting ready to come back in, Danny asked, he goes, is there anything that you don't want Dan to ask you? I said, no. He goes, well, because I know that you're comfortable talking with him. I said, Dan knows everything. He goes, but that doesn't mean the world has to know everything. I said, there's already a podcast episode out there somewhere where I've already opened up that wound and aired it for everybody to see. So I'm an open book because you're right. There's so many people that struggle with the same thing. Somebody's got to talk about it first.
Absolutely. And the majority of my life from basically 10 years old, maybe 8 years old, all the way to about 20, mm-hmm. I really thought I was worthless. I lived half my life feeling like I was worthless. Yeah. And I lived half my life that I can 100% tell you I lied to everybody. Mm. I made everybody think I was tough. But whatever you see in tough and drive and aggressiveness of me, I'm 10 times more sensitive.
Yep.
It's very quick to cry. I cried every time Jenny left and came back in Forrest Gump. My favorite movie is The Sound of Music, for God's sake. I mean, I'm just so feminine in those areas, and I'm so emotional.
Yeah.
But until I was 20 years old, you never would have known that.
It was a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It was a way to protect yourself.
It was the way that I protected myself. It was my lie. And then when I found religion and I realized that I had value, I started spending the rest of my life living out the last couple verses of 1 Corinthians 13, which if for those that don't know, it's a letter in the Bible. It's an epistle in the Bible to the Corinthian church. And it was written by Paul. And he's basically, they call it the love chapter. You hear it at weddings. Yep. It says stuff like this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy, does not boast, keeps no records of wrongs, things like that. And that's the part we read.
Yeah.
And when I met my wife, we would write that to each other and memorize that together. But then when you go down to the bottom, it says, when I was a child, I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And when I became an adult, I put childish ways behind me. And that's really cool. Mm-hmm. But the verse underneath that's the one that really stuck to me. And it says this. It says, I see now, and one day I shall see fully. Or another translation says, I see as if I'm looking in a foggy mirror. But one day I shall know fully, just as I am fully known.
Yep.
And what that means to me is like, I'm already fully known by God. He already knows who I am. He already knows the things I've done right. He knows the things I've done wrong. And I'm good enough. Mm-hmm. I'm good enough. And so my mission the rest of my life is to enter into the presence of other amazing humans like yourself and say, just be fully known because you're good enough.
Yeah.
And yet, I still find myself not wanting to talk about life, especially when I am this and this happens, when I've done this and I've messed up. But the reality is, that which is most personal is also most universal. And there's a learning lesson in it that we can give to each other. All right.
It's also human nature.
Human nature. Got battle against that.
Battle
daily.
Against the flesh.
Yeah. So what's number 4?
Number 4 is little to no savings. And really the root behind that when we talk about it is there's no savings, not for a lack of cash flow, but because every time there is a surplus, it gets reinvested back into the business, when in reality that business owner is just buying an expense. They're not buying something that's going to give them a return on that investment. But they like to say, oh, I'm investing back in the business. No, you ain't. You're broke. And you're broke because you're not putting money in savings. And you can't afford this investment moving forward on a sustainable basis because you have no savings. And what are you going to do when you're in your slow season?
Give me 3 examples of people who buy, or what business owners are buying expenses. What does buying an expense mean?
Buying a piece of equipment with no usability in the foreseeable future.
Right.
Buying a new vehicle just because they want to lower their taxable income before the end of the year. But again, there's no usability for it in the future, or there's no use for it.
Right. It's not going to increase production.
Exactly.
You're not going to make any money from it.
Exactly.
So it's a liability.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or hiring. Only hiring during their peak seasons and not actually having the savings to sustainably pay that person when they go into their slow season. So they're in this cycle of busy, hire, slow, fire. Whereas what we like to do is based off of their cash flow and analyzing their profit and loss on a month-over-month basis, seeing where their slow season is. When you're in your months where you are flush, you should save even more. Then when you are in a slow season and all of your competitors are in a slow season too, and they're in that same cycle of firing everybody because they can't afford to keep them on staff, you then get to pick up those workers that are really great, but your competitors is fired. So now you have the extra cash to train that person during your slow season, which means you're giving them dedicated attention, training them properly rather than quickly training them and throwing them to the wolves during your peak season. And so by the time you're out of that slow season again, that person's fully trained, they're well equipped, you were able to financially make it through that time frame. When your peak season comes back up again, that person's ready to hit the ground running. That's an investment. That's an asset to the business, not a liability. And now your competitor, they're in their peak season too. They don't have enough people on hand. They're now hiring whoever they can find, which is typically not quality workers.
And then now they're hiring out of pain.
Exactly.
Which is the worst type of way to hire somebody.
Exactly.
Interesting. All right. So what's number 5?
Unbalanced leverage. And so there are business owners who typically have too much debt, but very often we're actually seeing people who don't have enough debt. So if you're in a situation where you're doing well financially and you just keep paying for everything out of cash, it's nice to not have a debt payment, but the issue then lies in your cash flow. And if you're doing well financially, if you have great profit margins, if your books are clean, you should apply for a line of credit when you don't actually need one. Not because you want to tap into it right away, but that means you're going to get the best rates, the best repayment terms when you do need to get it. The second you need a loan, it's a lot harder to get that loan.
Well, because everybody knows it.
Exactly.
And now you're a higher risk.
Exactly. So get the line of credit when you don't need it, hold on to it. So when you need to actually invest back into the business through new equipment, new hires, whatever it may be, you have the money on hand. You don't have to use your actual operating cash to pay for that investment. And then if you are getting a return on that investment, you use that return to pay back the loan.
Well, it's so hard for a business person to work on their business when they're working in their business so much. A lot of business people are the number one performer. They're usually the number one salesperson that has to build a team around them.
Yep.
So that's where this idea of a fractional CFO comes in, because now you've got someone who's only focused on your business and doesn't work in your business. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not the fractional CFO's job to pull the trigger on any decision making. It's their job to give the data and provide suggestions that the business owner then gets to delegate to their team.
Right. Well, also, the reality also is you are taking a look at reality. You are seeing the naked truth of their business.
Yep.
And the mere fact that you are privy to that information adds a level of accountability that they didn't have before.
Exactly.
Accountability is not about catching you at your worst. It's about helping you get what you want. And the easiest form of accountability sounds like this. Ready?
Ready.
What did you say you were going to do? What did you do? And what's the delta?
That made me forget my gift for you.
Oh.
Last time you and I were talking about the accountability conversation, you talked about how you will fine your coaching clients $1,000 after the first offense every time they don't hit their goals because they got in their own way. I had a shirt made for you.
Oh, well, there you go. Now you have to come back.
Darn.
Do it again. More Mills Bender time. I'll take it. All right. So we've got the 5 rules kind of business, right?
Yeah.
I think it's also important that we turn this into a little bit of financial education, business education, okay?
Sure.
So let's talk about the 5 models of a business. And you and I have talked about this before. There's really 5 models of a business. So I'm going to say what they are and you tell me what they mean to you.
Okay.
So obviously the first one is your profit and loss statement. What is that?
Profit and loss statement shows all the money that has been made in the business and all of the expenses that the business has paid for, albeit those few exceptions I mentioned earlier, like taxes, principal debt payments, and owner's draw. But it should overall show the financial health of the business, and it should be updated consistently so the business owner can make decisions based off of that data.
Yeah, and that's going to be your financial model. So your financial model is your P&L. And then the next one is your budget model. What is that one?
Personally, I like to base a budget based off of where I want to be, not necessarily where I have been. And so the budget is leveraging and looking at the profit and loss to see what's a pretty consistent piece in your business, but then saying, if I've paid $5,000 in payroll this month, but I need to hire a new person, I want my budget to be $8,000 for payroll. So it's where you are intending your money to go, and it's a monetary reflection of your goals, is how I say it.
So that would be a budget model in a business. Now, let me share with you my philosophies on a budget personally.
Yeah.
Now, I said it earlier, a budget is when you spend your money on paper on purpose before the month begins. If you're a business owner, and again, this is the world according to Dan, not Mills Knows Bills, this is just mine. And my rule says if you're a business owner, you're not allowed to live paycheck to paycheck. It's against the rules.
Okay.
So what we do in our business, and this like really happens, my bookkeeper didn't understand it for years. My CPA hated it for years. And now they like get it and they really understand it, is because I, as disciplined as I am in so many areas of my life, I know that I'm also very undisciplined. So I have to create the discipline.
Yeah.
So in my world, I have to get ahead of my budget by 1 month. So what that means is
I like that.
We're in February. We're about to enter February. I actually deposit all my checks now.
Okay.
So right now, I've actually not taking any checks from my business. They all sit in a drawer. All of my accounts payable are sitting in a drawer, or they're sitting in an account that I don't have access to yet. And at the end of the month, we settle. We pay all our bills. We square our budget to our P&L to our budget. So we know how much we need, and we square our bank accounts to that. We move whatever money's got to go to taxes goes to taxes.
Yep.
And then we take our profit off the table. We put that into our profit account, and then we reset at zero. And
Nice.
and then part of that budget in the business now is going to be owner profit, which you not only are you entitled to owner profit, you're required to have owner profit, or else you don't have a business. So in my coaching world, you're required to take profits, or else you don't have a business. So then what we do is we take those profit numbers and we move those over to our budget.
Yeah.
And then I take my paycheck and I move it over to my budget. So what I've made in January, I spend in February.
Yeah.
That's how you transfer your personal money, your business money to your personal account. What a lot of people do is they base this month based on what I made this month. And now you're a 6-figure, 7-figure earner who's living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
You have to spend your money on paper, on purpose before the month begins, but you have to use last month's money to do it.
Exactly. We establish sinking funds in our personal finances.
What does sinking funds mean to us uneducated people, please?
So a sinking fund is where you put money for a short period of time, knowing that you are going to be using it within the next year, sometimes shorter. So I'll use our mortgage payment, for example. We have a sinking fund for our mortgage where we set aside money every time my husband gets paid into a separate account. And then that money comes back over and it gets pulled to be then paid for the mortgage. And so we're a month ahead on our mortgage payment because we put money aside with every paycheck, which helps with our personal cash flow too.
Love that. So the first 2 business models we've talked about so far is our financial model, which involves the P&L. And then we've got our budget model, which is there. Then the next one we have underneath that is we have our lead generation model. What does that mean?
For me, I talk about that in terms of pipeline, but not necessarily what's just in my pipeline, but how I'm going to get there. And so in my business, I get most of my prospects and clients through speaking engagements. And so I have a model where I will consistently reach out to consistent referral partners asking for opportunities to get in front of their clients. And so I have systems and processes in place that not only I implement, but my EA implements on my behalf, keeping up with these relationships to then build my pipeline later on.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly it. It's the activities necessary to generate the certain amount of leads at the top of the funnel and how those funnel down to hit your lead generation number.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. The next one is an organizational model. What's that?
That's how the company is structured.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
So who communicates with whom, who's in charge of certain roles,
Who owns it?
Who's in charge of it. The way that we hold each other accountable internally is every week we go over scorecards.
Yep.
And within those scorecards, we have 6 to 8 different items that we need to hold each other accountable for. And it's not just us verbalizing that on our meetings. We actually share our screen and we show it. And then people don't like having red on their scorecard, and so they fix it for the following week.
Love that. So your organizational model is who does what, when the next hire is going to be.
Yep.
It's the structure and the organization of the company. Now, let me show you how that works in real time, okay?
Okay.
So we're starting to expand our company. We're starting to see our workloads increase. We want to, take on more clients, provide a better service, whatever that is, whatever our metrics tell us, okay? So we know who the next hire is to make based on our organizational model.
Yep.
Our budget model tells us when to do it.
Exactly.
So that's how those two models work together.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to, my financial model tells me how much money I want to make. My budget model makes me behave so I can accomplish it.
Yep.
My organizational model feeds the people that are necessary to do that. And the lead generation model tells me how many people I'll need to do and how much spending I'll have along the way. And then there's the last model, which you started to allude to. And I put these models together one after the other. And that's the accountability model.
Okay.
And the accountability model really just says, how do we treat each other? How do we know if we're winning or losing? I jokingly tell people this all the time. I used to be a police officer. And as a police officer, what do you think the number one reason why prisoners riot in a prison?
They all band together to do it? I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, you can, in Florida, some of the state prisons don't have air conditioning. They don't riot because of that. They don't riot because of that. Nope. It's only in the pods where they are during the day. No air conditioning. They don't, you can put them in a cell for 23 out of 24 hours. They don't riot. You can treat them like crap. They don't riot. You know what the number one reason what causes riots in a prison system?
Somebody let it?
The perception of bad food.
What?
It's the facts. Look it up. The perception of bad food. So here's the deal. We know that that's the reason why they're going to riot.
Okay.
What do you think is the number one reason why your employees riot?
I don't know.
They don't understand how they're getting paid.
Oh.
An inconsistent pay structure. Now you think about that. I've hired people and underpaid them, but they're like, you know what? I'm trading my time for money and this money makes sense for me. Okay. And as long as it's consistent, they stick around. But when they make more money today, less money tomorrow, and they're like, well, how did I even get paid? Yeah. That's where they riot. And that's where a lot of these businesses fall through. And that's where your accountability model does that. That's where your accountability model will really benefit you because it says, if you want to achieve this, these are the behaviors you have to have.
Yeah.
So it's not me versus you. It's you versus the rules. One of my mentors, Gary Keller, says he's a lover of people and I'm a lover of people. And he's also kind of a little bit difficult. And sometimes I can be a little bit difficult, I've been told. And one of the things that he says is, I love you and I will always love you. My standards don't love you. Accountability doesn't love you. Accountability doesn't take into consideration how long you've worked here, what you did yesterday. It takes into consideration what you said you were going to do, what you did, and what the delta is. And when people clearly understand what their job is, what they're supposed to do, and how to change that difference, that delta, they're very happy.
Yeah.
The world in which I live and the businesses in which I run, everybody that works for me understands those. And because of it, they're very happy.
Yeah.
They're not begging me for more money. They're not asking for extra time off. They're happy exactly where they are. Now, obviously, cost of living goes up. We got to pay them more. There are people that have babies. They go out sick, whatever. We take great care of them. But at the end of the day, accountability is the string that wraps these models together. If you don't have the accountability, your models fall apart.
It's interesting the way that you just explained that. It brought to mind somebody that I was listening to maybe 8 months ago who was talking about when to hire or fire somebody. And this is why we started implementing scorecards as heavily as we do, is because then there's no question about whether or not somebody is doing their job. Mm-hmm. You're not then firing them. They're firing themselves. You just happen to be the messenger.
Yeah, I love that. Say that again.
So if somebody is not doing their job, you're not firing them. They're firing themselves. You happen to just be the messenger.
Yeah, and I mean, and a scorecard actually makes it all so much easier, and here's why. People who aren't doing a good job, they know they're not doing a good job.
Yep.
And because when I was younger in business, I was a very weak leader. I would keep people around because I was uncomfortable with firing them.
Yep.
Or parting ways, right?
Yeah.
And then as I got older and I started thinking about that, I actually did them such an amazing disservice.
Yeah.
Because that meant that person went to bed the night before saying, I'm not going to do a good job tomorrow. I'm not doing good. I'm on the wrong seat on the bus. Yeah. I don't have the behavioral profile for this, or for whatever reason. They went to bed that night and they came in the next day and they didn't do a good job. And they know that they weren't doing a good job. And they knew that I knew that they weren't doing a good job. And this would go on for weeks and months until eventually maybe they would do something that forced me to fire them.
Yeah.
And I think about myself, and I really just wish I had gained that understanding so much earlier, because it hurts people.
It does.
And, you know, the job of a leader is to provide clarity.
Yeah.
That's the number one job of a leader, is to provide clarity. And I ask myself, how many times was I unclear on the standards, unclear on these things? And then who suffered as a result of my unwillingness to be uncomfortable?
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I'm a lot smarter now when it comes to hiring. I'm a lot wiser, but I'm only wiser and smarter when it comes to everything to do with leadership because of the failures. Because I mean, I can literally see their faces right now, that these people that were good people, that I should have said, how's it going? How are you? What are you thinking? Yeah. And given them an opportunity, and they would have said, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Now, several of them I still know today, they would not say I have any ill will towards Dan Grebe. I know I could have done better, and I measure myself against what I could do, not what they think of me.
Yeah.
But I just think that's a lesson for all young leaders, is to have those conversations.
I think that's something that a lot of business owners struggle with. I mean, I myself have struggled with it, and I've gotten a lot better at it over the last couple months, but frankly, there's still so much room for improvement. And I think the reason I struggled with it so much was because I could see that person's potential. I could see, if I was given that opportunity, what I would do with it as well. But at the end of the day, maybe that person doesn't want to step into that potential. They're content with where they're at. And if that means that they're not a good fit for the role, then they're unhappy, not living up to my expectations. I'm unhappy that they're not living up to the expectations. And so, as you said, you're doing them a disservice. I've actually fired 2 people in the last 4 weeks. And it's been because of lower standards than what I have set in place. But one person has already found a new job, is far happier because they're in an environment that allows them to thrive, rather than my environment, which didn't, because the standards were so far out of reach for what they wanted to accomplish themselves. Yeah,
I love that. Well, you know, the other negative byproduct to keeping people around that shouldn't be around is that this idea of proximity. You know, I'm sure you heard Cody Sanchez just recently said she did some research, and there's like this, I'm making the numbers up because I don't know exactly what they are, but there's like if you sit next to a high producer, your chances of becoming a high producer go up. Your production goes up by X multiple, and it's, call it 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. But if you sit next to a low producer, your production goes down by 4 or 5. So it actually goes down more because of proximity. Yeah. So it's really important to do that. And when we talk about culture, the only thing that the leader really is in charge of is who's in the room.
Absolutely.
Not the culture of that room.
No.
The people have to adapt the culture.
Yes.
You determine who it is. And here's what we know. High achievers don't like mediocre people, and mediocre people don't like high achievers. And here's the crazy thing. Mediocre people don't have other options. High achievers do. So who ends up leaving your organization?
The high achievers.
That's right. Because you didn't have the balls to do the right thing.
Yep.
And now you've got a bunch of mediocre people, which means that you're in this place where you're saying, I need to burn this whole thing down, start over. And it all started because you didn't hold the standard.
Absolutely.
And that is the penalty of leadership.
I agree.
Over and over and over again. Crazy, huh? Mm-hmm. So many other things for us to transition and talk about here. Let's talk more about you, because not only are you a fractional CFO, so you're helping other people with their businesses, but you also have your own business, this Mills Knows Bills thing.
Yeah.
So where you are, subbing out fractional CFOs to others, you're running bookkeeping, and now you've got some tax processes going on there. But your business model is relatively unique, young lady.
I guess so.
How many days a week do you work?
3 days a week.
No. I didn't hear that correctly. You only take 3 days off a week. Is that it, correct? 3 days off?
No, I work 3 days a week. I'm off 4 days.
Okay, so 3 24-hour days a week, like a firefighter.
No, I work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and an hour of which each day is for me to go to the gym. So 8 hours a day, 3 days a week, 24 hours.
Then you must be a massive failure. Tell me how it is collecting government cheese these days.
No, I think it's important to state that even though I'm only behind my desk for 24 hours a week, doesn't mean that it's out of my brain the other hours. But it's forced me to become more efficient in my business sooner. So if I find that I'm surpassing my 24 hours a week or getting close to surpassing those 24 hours, I realize that something is broken in my efficiency. And that's my opportunity to either hire somebody, offload, implement a new piece of technology to help me streamline, whatever it may be. So I'm just looking, I have a smaller threshold in terms of time. And so I'm looking for solutions earlier on than I would if I was working 40 hours a week.
Right. And the reality here is we're not telling everybody to go, all of a sudden now your business has to be the 4-hour work week or the 24-hour work week or whatever. However you're doing it, your model will work, right?
Yeah.
Your model is designed because you want to be a businesswoman, you want to scale a business, but being a mom and being a wife is more important.
It is. Absolutely.
And you've made that decision. I mean, you're 28 years old, you've got 2 kids. You will probably be pregnant by the end of this year.
Probably.
And that's just how you do it.
Yeah.
And, you've got a goal to have how many children?
4.
4 children. So, the track record you're on now, you'll probably have all 4 of them by the time you're 30.
Oh, I certainly hope not. Give me until 32, Dan.
Okay, do whatever you want. Listen, I have a feeling you and Joe aren't going to let me vote on this regardless. So I'm going to let you guys figure it out on your own. But the reality here is, that's important to you.
Yeah.
And because that's important to you, you've put some serious guardrails up.
Yep.
I've asked you to meet with me and you're like, nope. Or I'll meet with you, but I'm bringing my child with me. And hey, listen, I respect that hustle. I think that's beautiful. And we've met together with your babies.
Yep.
There's
Multiple
photos
times.
of me holding them.
Yep.
I love it. So I'm down for that. A lot of people would be like, you know what? I can't meet. Listen, if you listen to this podcast long enough, you're just going to realize that I'm a knucklehead just like everybody else. And I'm trying to figure it out and I'm growing. But, some people think that I'm somebody you should listen to. Sometimes you think that. And I'm sure
I do often.
Well, thank you. I'm honored that you would say that. And
in fact, when I thought about burning everything to the ground last week, Joe goes, "Have you talked to Dan yet?" And I'm like, "No, because I know what Dan's going to say."
Okay. Well, I don't know what I'm going to say, but with that being said, you probably had a little bit for a moment of like, I can't go meet with Dan Grebe, the all powerful Dan Grebe with my baby. And you did.
Yeah.
Because whatever I could have offered you in that moment did not trump your life goal.
I'm also kind of at the point in my life, ever since I had my oldest, where if somebody has a problem with me bringing my kid along or having to wait an extra week when I'm working again, frankly speaking, I don't want to do business with them anyway. I don't want to do life with them because their personal core values or their goals are misaligned with mine. And so even if I take that meeting and justify on the boundaries that I have set in place, it's not going to be a sustainable relationship anyway. And frankly speaking, there's only been 2, maybe 3 people since I had my oldest that have had a problem with it. And they're not in my life. And I don't miss them not being in my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, that's standards. Mm-hmm. And when you have real standards or what you would refer to as boundaries, they matter.
Of course they do.
Now, here's the thing about boundaries, standards, things like that. I try to tell people I lived a long portion of my life a lie. Mm-hmm. And I heard this saying, it says, the walls that you build to protect you will one day be the walls that imprison you.
Yep.
So I lived behind the walls of what I would call boundaries and standards, which were just the protective walls that imprisoned me. And I had to pull all those bricks down, mm-hmm. and I had to have boundaries. Mm-hmm. Now, boundaries are not walls. Mm-hmm. They're fences, and fences have gates. Mm-hmm. And I can open them and close them depending on how you behave. Right? So for you, you had a boundary. Like, listen, if you can't allow me to be a working mom, then I can't do business with you.
Yeah.
And you believed that that was important to you, but you also believed that you had value.
Yeah.
And there's almost like in my world, I don't think it's ego to say, I'm going to treat you better than anyone else, because you don't need 20 years of experience to treat somebody well.
No.
I mean, the golden rule, it's very simple. Treat others how you'd like to be treated. Like, we've all heard it.
Yeah.
It's very simple. So you don't need experience to do that. You don't need technical knowledge to treat people with love, respect, dignity, and mm-hmm. and listen to them, mm-hmm. which is a lot of what we do in all industries, owning a business. And if they're not willing to do that, then you're not willing to do business with them. Yeah. And they're going to lose out the benefits of doing business with Mills Bender.
They are. And I think if I had thought about this 3-4 years ago, I would have shied away from saying they're going to miss out on doing business with me. But by surrounding myself with people like you who are unapologetically doing big things, they're building empires, they are wanting to take people who want to go along the ride with them, along with them, I don't feel afraid to say that anymore. They are going to miss out, and I feel sorry for them. And 4 years ago, I would have thought that was an arrogant thing to say, but I really now know the true value that I bring, not just in business, but personal relationships too.
Yeah, well, there's 2 types of people, and you said it earlier, I want to do life with people. Mm-hmm. So I operate my world on a VIP pyramid, 85 people. Mm-hmm. And a large part of my business based on referrals like yours is, so I've got 10 people that refer me 10 people a year. So it's 100 referrals. Then I've got 25 people that refer me 2 people a year at a minimum. So that's another 50 referrals. And then I have 50 people that refer me 1 person a year. So that's about 200 referrals that come to me personally. David's got the same. He does the same as the other salespeople that work with me. Yeah. And our small little business does, 500 transactions when you include our warranty company, our real estate company, the other things we do, just off 85 people.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I tell people is that I don't monetize my friends.
Yeah.
I don't monetize my friends. I don't want to monetize my friends. However, anyone I do business with at a super high level that's in that VIP pyramid, or what my coach calls his priority pyramid,
yep.
priority people in his life, they have to live by a certain level of moral code.
Yes.
They don't have to have the same religious beliefs as me. They just have to have the same moral code.
Yep.
So as a 50-year-old man, I can't be hanging out with 50-year-old dudes that are getting drunk all the time. I can't be hanging out with guys that are cheating on their wives. I just can't be around people that are recreationally using drugs. Mm-hmm. I just can't be around those people. I can't be around people that, are using racial slurs or minimizing, people that can't defend themselves. I just hate that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not who I want to be, and I just can't be around them.
Yeah.
So you can't be my real friend or my deal friend if you do not live by that basic moral code. Now, one of the things I'm learning, my coach is teaching me, and one of my great friends just told me the other day, I've known her for a long time, that she saw the change in me, is that I've worked really hard at becoming more relational over the years. Mm-hmm. You saw me kind of early into that, being my real self, being more relational. But now my goal is I've got deal friends who I deal with Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You know, I have this responsibility to produce for my family, do a good job when I'm at work. And then I have my real friends over here. Nights and weekends. If you need an emergency, need something from me during the day, call me. But I'm really working on generating revenue during the daytime, nights, weekends, holidays. I want to go hang out with you.
Yeah.
Both of them are people I want to do life with.
Yes.
My goal is to blend them all into one group. And that's the concepts of one of my favorite books, Mr. Schmooze.
Yep.
And Mr. Schmooze, he doesn't have deal friends and real friends. Everyone's his real friends that he does deals with.
Yep.
What would life be like if you just did business with people that you knew, like, trust, and that when you help them accomplish their next thing, you knew that you were just helping a friend.
Yeah.
And there was a monetary benefit to it, but you'd do it for free anyway.
Yep.
That's the world I want to live in. And that's the concept of being a whole life millionaire. You can have it all. You can do it all.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to you. I mean, you're doing that. Like one of the first kind of times first time I met your husband, Joe, you made Mill's famous Italian dinner.
I did.
And it was fantastic. It was one of those meals served with love. Like, you felt the love in every bite.
I made it with love. I'll
Right.
jokingly say sometimes when I'm annoyed with Joe, I'm like, this was made with like, not love.
Oh, yes. Yes. I like you. I don't love you right now. I can get back there, but not this minute. But that's what's beautiful about it, right? So let's dig deeper into that. I mean, obviously, you've got to be feeling you're 28 years old, so you're not, this wise 40-year-old woman. You can't be. You want to know why you can't be? Because
I'm not 40.
Exactly. And you're not trying to get there anytime quickly, right? But here's the reality. You got to feel the pressures of keeping up with the Joneses and
Always.
and competing at that level, and bigger house, bigger car, doing this, doing that, scaling my business, becoming something more, especially when you work in so many businesses of others and you're seeing people who aren't doing it right, winning at a really high level anyway.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Because there is this real desire to be this, and then like in your soul, you want to be this.
Yeah.
Something different.
It's not easy. In fact, that's one of the things that I grapple with almost on a daily basis. And so for me, I try to, let's back it up a little bit. Not only am I much younger than a lot of the people that we work with. In fact, I think everybody on my team is older than me as well. The networking groups, the masterminds that I'm part of, I'm typically the youngest person in the room. Stack on top of that, I'm a mom of 2 younger kids. So even the women in the room, they have kids, but they're normally 13 years or older, right? And so no one is in the same stage of life as me. They're either a dude or they're a woman with older kids or no kids. And so it took me a while to realize that the systems and processes, the big moves that they're making in their business, those moves aren't for me right now. And I made a lot of poor decisions a few years ago trying to implement what they were doing in my business well before I was ready to have it. And so coming out on the other side of it, coming out on the other side of those failures of seeing it calls me back anytime I have that feeling come up again, like I'm not enough, to remind myself that that's not my season of life. My season of life is working 24 hours a week. It is having my husband who works a job and we base off of his paycheck our personal. Any distribution I take from the company, we treat as extra. It goes straight to the investments. It is me spending time with my kids. It's me figuring out how to streamline given that time constraint. And so a lot of the things that those people are doing, they're doing those items because they have 10 plus years on me. And I'll get there, and that's okay. But I get to work with what I have right now. I am called to, as you say, I have a responsibility to make what I need to make during the hours that I work. But in my faith, I also need to be a good steward of what I do have. And so in order to be a good steward of what I do have, it means I need to focus on what I have and work towards what I would like to earn as well. And so I really try not to compare myself to anybody at this point. It still is difficult, don't get me wrong, but I'm not comparing me to other people. I'm comparing me to me. And so that's why we look at our personal finances every week. We see if we're seeing growth. And if we're not seeing growth, what do we need to do to change it? So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that answers the question beautifully. And the women that needed to hear that just heard that.
Thanks.
All those moms that are home thinking, how am I going to do all this and be successful? Like, you're a mom. You are successful.
Yeah.
You know, I told this story a long time ago. One of my favorite stories is there was a woman. I was raised by a single mom, so I think about her a lot. My mom passed away a couple of years ago, and I think about her a lot. I know she'd be so proud of me right now for the things that I was able to accomplish, especially being the middle child, you know, abused by my dad, yada, yada, all these things. There was a woman, and as a child, she prayed, God, let me one day change the world for you. Yeah. She got a little older, became a teenager, nothing happened. She prayed, God, let me change the world for you. Got a little older, became a young adult, nothing happened. She prayed, God, let me change the world for you. She went to college, nothing happened. She got married. She said, God, one day let me change the world for you. Didn't happen. She had a baby, little boy. She said, God, let me change the world for you. Didn't happen. She raised that little boy, took him to church and showed him the ways of the world. Nothing happened. Little boy became a teenager. She prayed, God, let me change the world for you. Nothing happened. Little boy went to college. She said, God, let me change the world for you. Nothing happened. Little boy got married, started his world, started his life, started his career. Nothing happened. Woman found herself on her deathbed. Just before she passed away, she said, God, I'm sorry I never changed the world for you. And the man standing over her was a guy by the name of Martin Luther. And for those who don't know who Martin Luther is, that's who Martin Luther King is named after. Martin Luther is a man who started what's called the Protestant Reformation, who changed the world for Christianity. So if you go to a church that's not Catholic, it's because of Martin Luther.
Yeah.
It was the story of Martin Luther. So that woman did change the world. She just didn't change the world she thought the way she should.
Yeah.
And, you know, my mom may have prayed that one day she would change the world. And I'll hope that she knows that she changed the world by investing in me, by not giving up on me. Because I was a very troubled child, very difficult. And I prayed that one day I would change the world. And I know for a fact that I have had an opportunity to change the world. And it was by leading a person with Down syndrome through an Ironman. And I would pray that I wanted my life to matter. I didn't want to change the world. I just wanted my life to matter because I'd gone through so much difficulty that I wanted it to just have a reason. Yeah. And I can clearly see all of the valleys in my life, and I had a reason. And when I helped Chris Nickage complete that Ironman, and it gave validation to people with Down syndrome all around the world, what happened for me is God allowed me to change the world for a world I didn't even know existed. Yeah. Because before I met Chris, I was 45, 46 years old. Before I even met Chris, that was the first person I ever met with Down syndrome. Now I see him everywhere. What, they didn't exist for the first 45 years of my life? And when we completed that Ironman and we did that thing, I was getting, Facebook messages, Instagram, Twitter messages from all around the world in languages I was like Google Translate over and over again. And the messages were all the same. Thank you for letting me know that my child matters. My desire to make my life matter turned out making maybe millions of other people's lives matter.
That's awesome.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
So I think what I'm trying to get to here is, Mills, your story about running Mills Knows Bills, being a fractional CFO, speaking into other people's businesses, but also doing it as a stay-at-home mom and unapologetically doing both is you changing the world.
Thank you.
In your own way. And that's so beautiful, and that's so smart to do it that way. And I hope that the world never, I don't know how to say it to a woman, but I'll say it like I'm talking to a man.
Say it.
I hope the world doesn't kick you in the nuts so hard that you decide you're going to change that. Because the world is going to.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. You're going to get kicked in the nuts enough times that you're going to question, am I doing the right thing? And a lot of people, they just go do what the rest are doing. They just go back to the other way and they give up on their dream. I hope you don't, because it's of real value. Now, there's a lot of women that are watching this. I think a lot of people are going to be inspired. Number one, they're going to want to interact with you and learn from you through your financial intelligence and what you do. I mean, I've learned a lot from you. Thank you. So they're going to want to interact with you on that. But I also think there's going to be a lot of moms that want to interact with you and kind of talk to you about how you do what you do. Yeah. What are some advice that you would give the women that are either thick in it right now or considering doing some of the things that you're doing?
If you're in the middle of it And you mentioned this earlier, like if life's going to kick me in the nuts, like how,
Thank you for saying that, because then I don't feel like a jerk saying that to you. Thank you.
I got you. I know.
Meet me right here in the dirt.
I'll meet you.
Thank you.
That's why resilience is such a critical core value, because it's not about how you feel. It's not about what is going on outside of you. It's how you're going to show up regardless of those circumstances, and how often you're going to show up regardless of those circumstances. And so when you're in the middle of it, just as I remind myself, I still need to show up. I still need to show up. I'm not just doing this for my business, for my clients, for my team members. I'm doing this for my kids. They get to see me work. I go downstairs, my little boy said, "Mama, have good working?" Yes. Yes, baby boy. Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking. Did you have fun playing? Yes, Mama. And I get to turn off my work brain for a few hours, spend time with him and my daughter, and be intentional with them. And if you're a mom who wants to start a business, just know that there is still a space for you, and you don't have to make your business look like the typical man does. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. You get to create a business as a woman should. And that means you get to have your moment where you are in the hustle and grind, but then you also have the moment where you get to be nurturing and caring, and you get to create that balance however you see fit. Don't apologize for the boundaries that you set in place in order to have that division between the two.
Yeah, love that. You know, my daughter, she's 27. Mm-hmm. She's kind of in that hustle and grind, but non-apologetic. I don't work when I don't work. Mm-hmm. Which is a little challenging for me because she runs a division of my company. And guess who does work when she's not working? Me.
Yeah.
I catch it. But at the same time, I have so much respect for her because she does not, she will, and she does when she needs to. But she's not trying to work nights and weekends. Yeah. When she's home, she's home. She's in. But she's also, just like you said, she's in a different phase of her life. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm an empty nester. Mm-hmm. You know, my wife doesn't want me to retire, doesn't want me to stay home all day. She wants me to get this nervous energy out doing something. And she doesn't want me at home all day. She likes peace and quiet and our puppy and hanging out at home with Jack, our dog. She likes that. She doesn't want me, your Hurricane Dan, running around the house all day. So I can get away with that.
Yeah.
And we've been together 28 years, and we enjoy our lives together and our lives apart. Yeah. And that's the balance we need. My wife will never stop mothering. So if I stayed home all day and there were no kids to mother, she'd be mothering me. Mm-hmm. And that'd be disastrous because I don't like being told what to do all the time. I don't want to be mothered. I want to go out and conquer the world and accomplish my thing. So we have Jack, our dog. Mm-hmm. And Jackson, I recently discovered, has not one but two beds in our room now, so that if he needs to switch from one to the other, he can. Wow. And I was like, okay. I remember when I grew up, I had to share a bed with my brother. Mm-hmm. And then when I lived alone with my dad, I didn't have a bed for a season, and my dog has two. And I was like, okay, this is how the rich people live. I can dig it. So I'm in the garage, and I noticed that I called my wife, and I said, "Mindy, how many dogs do we have?" And she goes, "Just one. Why are you asking?" I said, "Well, we have two little dog carriers in the garage now for our dog." And she says, No, Dan, you don't understand. This bed, it's a little too big for Jack because we go back and forth and we take Jack with us to our lake house and such. Okay. And it's a little too big for Jack, and it's a little unsafe because she straps the bed in the back seat to the car like with seatbelts, like a car seat. And like if we were to slam on the brakes, he could conceivably, possibly slide out. So now he needs a new one, and he really likes it better. And I'm like, there she is, doing what she does best, living her best life. She's mothering something.
She's mothering something. Yes.
She's mothering something. You know what? She's a whole life millionaire.
Yeah.
You're a whole life millionaire working 21 hours a week. You're different than Mindy. And because you're different than Mindy, I think it's okay for us to not go too deep into this, but to just go with this part. You work 21 hours a week. Roughly.
24.
Well, I don't do math well.
That's
Thank
right.
you. That's why I need a CFO in my life, right? Thank you. I was testing you. You guys, she passes that test.
I was going to say I passed.
Okay. 24 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm older than you. So the 24-hour a week workers, moms were typically selling Avon, and they weren't making much money. Mm-hmm. You are making much money. Mm-hmm. You're doing very well. Mm-hmm. So how many clients you have? Give me a kind of a just top line thing. If people want to know how much profit you're making, they should reach out to you directly.
Absolutely.
And the reason why, listen, we would talk, you and I know, we talk about it. The reason why I'm not talking about it here is because if you really want to know, I want you to reach out to Mills and talk to her. Have the guts to call her or email, and she'll tell you.
I have no problem telling you.
And her P&L is tight.
Of course it is.
Of course it is, yes.
I only work with 4 clients directly. 3 who are not within my organization, and then my company.
Right.
Those are my 4 clients.
Rock on. So talk to me about what your business looks like, because you're not selling Avon on the weekends. This is a real business. What does it look like? Because I want the other women to know you can be a mom.
Yeah.
Work 24 hours a week. That's more than 21 hours. I know that now. That's the math. And have a profitable business that is growing so big that your husband's going to actually leave his job and come work for you.
Yeah. So do you want to know where we're going, the trajectory to bring him over?
Well, tell us where, whatever you want to tell us. But let's quantify the fact that this is a real business.
Yeah. So by the time he comes over to the company full time, we're on track to have him come over by end of July. We will be making $110,000, $107 and change, but $110K MRR, and we'll be profiting $22,000 and change a month. That will replace his salary and then some. And at that point, we will also be bringing on an additional bookkeeper/analyst to help with that. So at that point, we'll have 32 clients roughly. I say roughly because we have 3 different packages, so it just depends on what they're at. And then we currently have capacity. We have capacity for 40 more clients, which is far more than what we would need to hit our number.
Right.
But the partnership we just had, it's their goal to make me have to hire another CFO by the end of the year.
Love that. And your husband's a legit programmer, works for one of these government companies.
Yeah.
Him leaving is leaving a legit 6-figure plus benefits trajectory to do big things job.
Yes.
And so him leaving is
it's a big deal.
And then now your family business is a beautiful business.
Yeah.
I recently saw this video of Jerry Jones. You know who that is?
I don't.
Dallas Cowboys football owner.
Okay.
Owns the Dallas Cowboys. And he tells a story about a family business. And I love it. I'm replicating it, stealing the idea. He loves his daughter. He lived in Arkansas, loves his daughter, loves his kids, wanted to spend more time with his daughter, but his daughter went to college in California. So he figures, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find a reason to be in California. So he goes and buys some land, and he's going to go develop some land, I think build some houses in California near his daughter's college. So he has a reason to be in California so he can just show up and see his daughter. I have a son away in college, and he would find it weird if I just randomly showed up all the time. But if I was like, well, I'm in town for business, then he would have more time to hang out with me. I get that. Yeah. So Jerry Jones does that. And then in the development of that land, he discovers oil, natural gas. And that becomes his oil and gas lifeline, where he starts. And this is where he makes all of his money. Well, his daughters and kids graduate college, and he then makes it his sole goal in life to hire them to all work for him. So they either work in his oil and gas company or in the Dallas Cowboys, which I think he only really owns the Dallas Cowboys, or he's out of the oil and gas. I don't know.
Okay.
His business, understandably. But they all work directly for him. And what I think is super cool about that is that he says, I have to spend 40 hours a week with people. And they're the people I spend the most time with in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So I want it to be my kids, because, you see your kids nights, weekends, but when they start having kids and getting busy, then you might see them one weekend a month.
Yeah.
That means you're only going to really see your kid 24 times a year.
Yeah.
But you can see them 20 times a month just at work.
Yeah.
And maybe they're working and they're interacting, but you're interacting with people you're madly in love with. And I looked up and I said, man, wouldn't that be a great goal? And I'm like, oh my God, I have 2 of them working for me already.
Yeah.
So I've got Claudia and her husband, David. David's a son of ours, beautiful young man. Claudia is the apple of my eye. And I've got a son who's in computers, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get him in here. And I got another one who's telling me he's going to go to nutrition school. He wants to get he wants to be, get his master's degree in nutrition, be a dietitian. And I'm figuring out how do I open a hospital here too and get involved in that. But that's where you're on that path now.
Yeah.
Bringing your husband in. I mean, what a great partner to have. Your life partner is your business partner. That's the partner you want. And listen, that guy is the best person to hire. Want to know why?
Why?
You know who he's sleeping with, and you perfectly vetted him. He's been completely vetted.
He has been vetted. And I think the crazy part to me is when people say, you know, oh, he's gonna eventually join the business. No, he's been part of it since day one.
Oh.
He's been part of it since day one. He's quite literally afforded me the opportunity to build a business.
He's funded it.
He's funded it.
Yeah.
There was a beginning moment in my career where I wasn't taking a paycheck at all. And so he gave us the opportunity to build that. And he's been the person that I bounce ideas off of. And now every Friday we have lunch meetings and I give him an update on 4 key metrics every single week. Because by him knowing where those metrics are, it's helping him learn more about the software that we want him to build.
Love that. I mean, and listen, that's what it's all about. If you didn't catch that, say that again. Your business is where it is today because
of him too. He's been part of it since day one. He's given me the support, but we also, what did you want me to repeat?
No, all that. Like
all of it?
All of that. Like, well, the what I want people to hear is the shift in thinking. Yeah. It's called Mills Knows Bills, but it's not your business. It's Absolutely our business. Not. And you saw him as a partner from the beginning, and you actually called him your, like, lack of a better word, your angel investor.
Yeah.
Joe's such an angel.
He is such
He's
an angel.
Angel investor.
He is. He's also IT support. I'll email him like, my mouse isn't working. Can you come fix it?
Right.
Plugs it in. It's dead. It needs to be charged.
Yes. But the view of that is it's not my business.
No, it's not. It's our business. Yeah. I just happen to be the CEO.
Right. I mean, but you're together.
Yeah.
You know, my wife, I could probably tell you the same thing. My wife and I have always been in business together because the way I became the man I am today, remember I told you foreclosure, bankruptcy, all that. Yeah. We fell into a real smart financial play and didn't know we did it. And this is a rule that I coach all of my people on.
Okay.
Number one is make sure your best investment you're ever going to make in life is who you marry.
Yep.
And then make sure you take really good care of that person. Because that's a lifelong relationship that when you make a commitment, you got to keep it. Or just get out of it now if you don't plan on keeping it because it's going to be messy.
Yeah.
So get out of it when you don't have nothing. But outside of that, get into it. Okay, now once you really understand that, recognize that the rules and money are not made up by you and I. They were long here before you and I. They'll be here after we leave. Well, when it comes to debt, my wife and I fell into this. I had terrible credit when we met. And she had great credit. So when we bought our house, it was in her name. We bought those cars, they were in her name.
Yeah.
So all the credit cards were in her name. So when I made a bunch of money and then I lost it all and we got our house foreclosed on and our credit cards, you know, all were in default and all of this stuff, the only debt that I really had attached to me was the IRS debt. Everything else was in her name.
Yeah.
So when we recovered, we switched everything into my name. And so my wife has nothing in her name now. And here's the rules. The rules of money says is if it's my credit card and I do not apply with my wife, that if we get in trouble and she's just a authorized user, then she doesn't have to pay those debts. That I can then switch all the debts back to her. And so that's what we did, is while one person's credit's recovering, while you're getting out of financial trouble with one, you can start right back up again. You can pick the business back up again. Yeah. So if you're going to be married, it makes a lot of sense to put all of the debt in one spouse and protect the other. Now, my wife stays home, and I have another philosophy that says we never gamble with the mothership.
Okay.
And they're like, how do you know which one's the mothership? I'm like, that's where the mother lives. So we don't do equity lines on our primary residence. We don't use that to invest in businesses or other investments of any type. We keep it very safe. My wife is that. My whole responsibility for the rest of our lives is to keep her protected because usually men die before their wives. And we know that. So I made a commitment to her father that I would take care of her in life and in death. That's what I said when he gave her to me. And so the rest of my life is make sure she's taken care of.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, she took care of me. She took on all the debt. She took on all the responsibility. And she got killed. She was the one that I was throwing those bills away with her name on it, not my name. she's the one that had to go through the shame of knowing that people are calling. Can I speak to Mindy Grebe? You owe us $400. You owe us $7,000. We'll settle today for half that. Like, if I had half that, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And she wasn't the one that caused the trouble. It was me. So she was the investor in that. Number one, she never gave up on me.
Yeah.
My wife never looked at me and called me a loser. Not based on the way she looked at me or the words she said.
Yeah.
She always said, you can do it. I believe in you. So much that she allowed her personal credit, her personal net worth to get destroyed so she could rebuild mine.
I think that's awesome. It really is about having somebody who's in your corner. And there have been a lot of times that Joe and I have shown up for the other person when the other person just couldn't do it, or they needed that vote of confidence or whatever it may be. And so I think you and I have talked about this a lot. Our personal finances, it's not separated. It's business versus personal, but it's all our money. It's all our debt. It's all our everything, Our children. Yep.
Even if you have stepchildren, the biggest mistake you can make in a blended family is to have a delineation between our children and our stepchildren.
Yeah.
They're just our children.
Yeah.
And if you are a step parent, sidebar here, you're a hero. Mm-hmm. The hardest thing you're going to do in life is to win the affection of a child who has a mom or dad, and now you're taking their place.
Yeah.
And the only way I can describe that effort that it requires to win that child over, heroic effort.
Yeah.
If you're one of those guys, would you please raise your hand? If you were able to listen to this all the way through, would you just raise your hand and tell you're one of those guys? I would love to just, give you a high five and tell you I'm proud of you, because that's heroic effort.
It really is.
It is, and partnerships are necessary. All right, let's wrap this up, Mills.
Yes, sir.
Bills. There's one thing that you didn't talk about earlier that you don't like to brag. It's going to happen in a couple of weeks. Yeah. But I know, and if I know, it means, like we have this rule, we don't apologize for being awesome.
Nope, we don't.
And you're in my present, so I'm going to bring it up. In about a month, maybe 3 weeks, you're going to be given an award into the UCF Hall of Fame for the business department.
Yes, the Entrepreneurial Night Award.
What does that mean?
Honestly, I don't really know.
So they just give it to everybody then?
No. So they have an event once a year. It's hosted by the College of Business, where they induct, I think, 4 people into the Hall of Fame who are doing something great that have graduated from UCF. In addition to those 4 inductees, they also have 4 other awards that they give out at that event. One of which is the Entrepreneurial Night Award, where they honor one business owner. It could be any alumni who have graduated from UCF, doesn't have to be College of Business. And so once a year they give out that award and they get acknowledged in that event, which is really cool.
Yeah, and you're getting it this year.
I am.
Working 28 hours a week, staying home with those kiddos, living your best life.
Yes.
And they're recognizing you.
I think the coolest part is you can't apply for it. You can't nominate. Somebody has to. I didn't even know what the award was until I was told that I was getting it, which was really cool.
Really, that's beautiful. And will you invite me?
I would love to invite you. I have to see if I can get more seats.
Well, then don't invite me. I'm not that important.
Yes,
but
you are.
if there's an extra seat, I'll go. I would be there. If I'm in town, I'll be there. I want to support you.
Thanks.
Because you're a good mom. You're a good human. You genuinely care.
Thank you.
You've got a mission to help other business people become effective. You don't have a problem holding up a mirror in front of someone and saying, this is reality, which is really rare. You're young and wise beyond your years.
Thank you.
And I'm honored to call you a friend. And you truly are a whole life millionaire. And I'm thankful that you came on to be part of this today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure sitting down and chatting with you.
Love you. And you're amazing. All right, guys. So as we wrap this thing up, if you have been inspired by anything Miss Mills Bender has said today, leave a comment below. You can reach out to her, millsknowsbills.com.
Yep.
She's on all the social media, same handle, correct?
Everything is the same.
Easy peasy stuff. She's got her own podcast called Mills Knows Bills. You can find her there. Hopefully one day I'll earn the right to be on her podcast.
You're already on the list.
All right, perfect. I'm deep down on the list, but hopefully one day I'll get there. And if you know someone here, whether it be in Central Florida or around the world that should be interviewed, that the world needs to hear their message, has an inspiring story, and is a whole life millionaire. Remember, everyone's a millionaire at something. Would you please let me know? And I'd love to get them involved. And obviously, if we said something that made a lot of sense, comment. And if there's something that kind of didn't work with you or, messes up your spirit a little bit, forgive us for that. We're just broken people trying to share with the world the best of ourselves, okay? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one.